As I was saying, this talk is about carving nature. So it is in general it is assumed that the species carves nature at its joints, at its natural joints. So okay, but we'll start from the beginning. Okay. The two theories that put forward by Searle in 1995 and that put forward by Ferraris in 2009 are fairly different in their core, but they are in a substantial agreement in drawing a short ontological distinction between natural objects and facts on one hand, and social or institutional. I don't care about the distinction between social and institutional in this context. Okay, social and institutional objects and facts on the other side. But actually, I think that there are some objects that show that that distinction is not so sharp, and so in particular, I will talk about biological species. This is the structure of the presentation, and I will try to say more or less what experts say about species, and then at the end we will try to face the question if species are social objects, because I think that our intuitions about this question are clashing. Thank you. Okay. So let's start with the first point. It is the distinction between natural and social. Okay. If I say right now I am talking at the conference Social Ontology from Intentionality to Documentality, my statement concerns an objective fact. All of you think that my statement regards the very same fact, and that fact makes my statement true or false true in this case. Nonetheless, that fact requires human institutions for its existence, and thus it depends on our agreement. Okay. Now, if I say my body is made of 16% proteins, 13% lipids, 1% glycids, and so on, my statement again concerns an objective fact, and that fact makes my statement true, but that fact does not require human institutions. Sorry.
Because
no.
Technical device.
Yeah. Okay. For its existence, okay, it only depends on the physical and chemical objects involved. Of course, you need human institutions to state the fact, but nonetheless, the fact is independent. Okay, and this is right, it doesn't work. Why I have this? This one doesn't work. Space. Okay. Sorry. And this is the distinction that Searle drawn between brute facts and institutional facts. Okay, the brute fact is that a water molecule is composed by one atom of oxygens and two atoms of hydrogens, and the institutional fact is that I have been at the Metallica concert. This is a false fact, actually. I've never been there, but I would like. Now, in a similar spirit, it has been claimed that natural objects and social objects are two completely different types of objects. Okay. Natural objects, such as mountains, rivers, human bodies, and so on, exist in space and time, and they are what they are independently of us. Social objects, by contrast, do not exist as such in space, since their physical presence is limited to the inscription being at their basis. We will back on this point at the end of the talk, but they endure in time and depend on our subjective activities. Okay, and this is actually the distinction that Maurizio Ferraris drawn between natural objects, such as stone, and social objects, such as this institute. Okay, at a first glance, the sharpness of this distinction is intuitive and convincing. A stone is there, and it is what it is independently from any representation that we may have of it, from our presence, thought, and intention. Okay. On the other side, the Belgrade Institute for Philosophy and Social Theory is there like the stone, but unlike the stone, without us, it wouldn't be this institute. It would just be an aggregate of bricks and glass. But I think that on closer look, and if we carry the examples beyond the paradigmatic cases, that is marriages, stones, etc., it seems to me that there are objects and facts involving those objects that challenge the sharpness of this distinction. And as I have already said, I think that biological species are very problematic objects if they are objects. Okay. Biologists are generally in disagreement about everything, but there is some basic fact on which they agree. Okay, and one of these is that evolution is a fact. And it is a fact that concerns biological species. Okay? Moreover, this is a fact independent from us. The other thing is that biological species are objective features of the natural world. They are discovered, they have causal power, they can be counted, they are countenanced in biological laws, they have a starting point in time, and they have an end. So it would be very tempting to say that evolution is a brute fact and that biological species are natural objects. But there is a sense in this in which we have a strong intuition supported by the opinion of the experts that the species are natural objects. But on the other side, if I ask you to point at the Homo sapiens species, you can just point at me or at someone else. You cannot point at the species, and you have seen the Homo sapiens species. Of course, you can say, yeah, but a species is a set, so you cannot point at that. You cannot see a set, etc. But actually, biologists prefer to speak about groups and not sets, in order to not commit themselves to abstract entities, because the abstract entities are atemporal, then they do not evolve. We need something evolving if we are talking about species. So they are treated as groups or individuals of a higher order. There are more than 20 definitions of species. They are contemporary in use among biologists, and every definition carves the natural world in different way, and often these carvings are incompatible among them. And this is, of course, a problem for the naturalism about the species. There is a strong indeterminacy of boundaries, and we will see this point in detail in what follows. Moreover, there is an agreement, a sort of a universal agreement that there are no underlying essences shared by every member of a certain species, at least after Darwin. Then species groupings seem to be characterized by some arbitrariness. Okay, so from one side we have the intuition to say, yeah, they're just natural objects. From the other side, things like this just can put that naturalness in question. So now, keeping in mind the main features distinguishing, according to Searle and Ferraris, social objects from natural ones, that is, the relation to the subjects and their spatial and temporal location, let's see what species are. Okay, or better, let's see what our best theory of natural world, that is the evolutionary theory, at least at present, tells us about species. And so we are at the third point. If we talk about classifications of natural world, we have to do with taxonomies. Okay, so what are species in taxonomies? Okay. This is the structure of the taxonomic hierarchy of our cats. That is Felis catus, is the scientific name. On the right side, you have just groups of organisms. At the left side, you have the taxonomic level of that group of organisms. So we are concerned with the right side, that is with taxa, not with their taxonomic level. Okay, so we are concerned with domestic cat as a group of all cats, and not with the taxonomic level of species that includes Felis catus, Drosophila, melanogaster, Homo sapiens, etc., etc. Okay. Now, at the light of the theory of evolution, a graphic representation of taxonomic hierarchy can properly be displayed as a tree, the smallest branches of which would represent a species. This is a very simplified version of the universal tree, that in yellow are animals, and they are a very small portion of the tree. If you continue from animals, you arrive at this one. This one is the terminal part of the tree of our Felis catus. So all that are species. Okay. So our question becomes, our starting question becomes, what type of entities are species taxa? Okay, such as Felis catus, Drosophila, melanogaster, or Homo sapiens. And there are some minimal tenets on species nature. First is that species are evolutionary units and that they have a time-extended nature. As I have said, biologists are in disagreement on almost everything, but this thing seems to be pretty established. Okay. So, in other words, species are thought to be segments of evolving lineages, that is, single lines of direct ancestry and descent. Okay. For instance, with the words of Mark Rejewski, all humans constitute a single taxonomic unit, a species, because all humans are connected either directly or transitively by heredity relations. Those heredity relations, in turn, cause the species Homo sapiens to be a particular genealogical chunk on the tree of life. So, now let's see more closely what these chunks are supposed to be. This is the coordinate. And I will argue that these chunks suffer of at least two types of indeterminacy. The first one is the indeterminacy of temporal boundaries. As already Darwin said he was aware of this speciation, that is a process that make a new species arise. Speciation is a gradual process. So consider this picture. This is a very standard model of allopatric speciation, and this is, as far as I know, uncontroversial. Everyone accepts this model. Now imagine that at TO we have one species made of three populations. at T1, a flood separates two populations from the other one, and because of the flood, the A1 population and the two population of A2 live in a different and very changed environment. After a while, one population can develop mutations, and after a while, that is an evolutionary time, the two populations and the other one do not interbreed no more. So at a certain point, we can talk of two different species instead of one. But when exactly? Actually, there's no matter of fact that allow us to decide, because mutations do not arise all at the same time in all individuals of a species. So biologists, taxonomists in particular, have to choose conventional point between T1, the time of the flood, and the time in which mutations start to arise, and T2, when we clearly can talk about of two species. And this is the first type, the first type of indeterminacy. Now, I think that there is another type of indeterminacy. That is, if we we have talked about allopatric speciation. It is a very standard model because it works very well with the sexual organisms, but biological world is very various and rich, and sexual organisms are just a very small part of that. So we need, and taxonomists use a lot of models. Then the very same lineage can be segmented in several substantially different ways, with identity criteria for species that are related to the taxonomic school you will choose. And by identity criteria, I very roughly, identity criteria tell us what determines or not. What determines whether species A and species B are the very same entity or not. And that's if we must count one or two species. Okay, so expanded the models, not just the allopatric one, and we will consider three cases. In the case A, we have one species A that after a lot of gradual mutations become a new species B. That is, all the individuals of species A at a certain point are so different from their ancestors that they are now considered a new species. After a while, species B can split, and according to the bifurcation model, similar to the allopatric that we have seen before, we have two new species. And B is considered extinct, and A is considered pseudo-extinct because parts of its gene package continue in B. This is one case, but now consider the very same. The substratum is the same. In this other model, we have phyletic transformation, etc. But after the splitting, according to the cladistic bedding, the species B can continue on one branch. So B is no more considered extinct, and we have a different number of species. Third case, a lot of taxonomic schools do not consider, in particular part of the cladistic school, do not consider phyletic transformation enough in order to talk of a new species. So in this case, if you accept this model, it's not B that splits, but it is A. And after you have two different models according to the cladistic bedding or to the other model, I can't remember the name, sorry. Okay, the bifurcation. So, what does this show? That the identity criteria for species are school relative, and so it is the number of species. And biologists are aware of this. I'm not saying nothing too bizarre, because actually the count of lichen species worldwide ranges from around 13,000 and 30,000 species. Count of bird species ranges from 9,000 to 20,000 species. So it is a pervasive situation. Now, it seems to me that the example of allopatric speciation, the first one that we have seen, proves that temporal boundaries of a species are undetermined. Okay? In order to say exactly when a new species has originated, it is necessary to choose a conventional time between T1 and T2, as we have seen. The other three cases about the general modus of speciation show that the identity criteria of species and then species numbers are school dependent. So in order to say whether a species A is the same entity then as a species B, and then in order to answer the question how many species are there, it is necessary to choose among several possible and biologically legitimate answers. And actually, biologists cannot choose. So, we're coming to the question, are species social objects? I don't know, actually, but I will try nonetheless to give a hypothetical answer. So I will assume a very minimal form of a realism, that is generally called the fig leaf realism, according to which there is an external world, a world that is outside from our theories and minds, but we do not endorse anything about the structure of that world. And I will call TPS, the theoretical posits of species, the species as described by our best scientific theory. That is what we have seen. I will call EWS, the external world species, if any. That is, species as real objects in the external world. And so I can see the following possibilities. TPS, that is the theoretical posits, reflects some entities or not. Okay. If they do not reflect, we have nominalism or eliminativism. Okay, and fig leaf realism is compatible with the two positions, because I can say, yeah, there is a word that is the amorphous lamp. There is a word, an external word, but I do not commit myself to the existence of species. So I am locally eliminativist about species, or nominalist, even if there is a difference. Of course, there is a problem with this position, because we have to making sense of evolution if species are the units of evolutions and they do not exist. Maybe there is a problem. The other possibility is that TPS exactly reflect some external world entities. Okay, but if the theoretical posits reflects exactly some entities, this means that the indeterminacies that we have seen is a character of the word, and this means the price of this position is that we have to buy into ontological vagueness. That is not very it's not a lovely position. The third possibility is that theoretical posit species inexactly reflect some external world species. And in this case, we have two possibilities. First one is that TPS inexactly reflects some perfectly determinate EWS, whose real nature is still opaque to our knowledge. Okay? We just need to wait and to trust in the progress of science, and at a certain point they will match perfectly. This is, for instance, the position of Locke and of Putnam. Putnam in the meaning of meaning. The other possibility is that we have not to wait, actually. Even in this case, we have not to buy into ontological vagueness, because the vagueness affects TPS rather than EWS, and vagueness can be precisified by taxonomic practices. There are consequences of this view that we may call strong conventionalism, and in this case, actually, species are social objects. And if we apply, because according to this view, species depend for their individuation, but not for their existence. We do not have to buy into idealism or whatever. Species depend on our convention as far as their individuation is concerned, and then in less analysis they are social objects. And if we apply Ferrari's view of social objects as a sort of diagnostic test, this conclusion seems to be confirmed, because according to Ferrari's, social objects do not exist as such in space, since their physical presence is limited to the inscription being at their basis. And if we say that a species is a social object, it would seem not unreasonable to locate it in the inscription being at its basis, that is, in the label attached to the specimen that bears the species name, which is the very first specimen discovered, baptized according to a well-established social practice, and jealously conserved in some natural museum. Second, as we have seen, species endure in time, even if we need to choose a conventional time in order to state exactly when they arise and when they come to an end. And finally, as we have seen, they depend, at least in part, on our subjective activities. So that's all. Thank you.